All right. Well, welcome back to another All Things MSP Live. Tonight is, something special. We really haven't talked about events before on this show, and I'm actually kind of embarrassed that I haven't had George on the show yet. I don't know how this has happened because George has had me on his show, so I just it escapes me how this just hasn't happened to this point. And I feel like I need to apologize for George a little bit because I did spring this on him a little last minute, but I know that he's a professional. He can do it. And I think what he's got to talk about tonight in terms of this event that he's putting on is really important because I think it's an event that he's really gone out and listened to you, the MSP, and created this event around what you've been asking for. And we have some other guests tonight who are going to be on the show to talk about what they're doing at this new show. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen up to here. Let's see, I'm going to put, we don't quite have all the guests yet, but we're close. We have 2 out of the 3. So I'm going to use my 4-up screen. And there's Ian, there's George, and we will wait on our third guest and pop them up as soon as they show up. So George, Ian, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey,
thanks for getting us in here, Erik. I know you're constantly growing this thing, man. So it's okay. Better late than never.
I'm trying. It's that and holding down a full-time job at the same time.
Totally get it,
it's
man.
Funny how marketing becomes a full-time job on top of a full-time job.
Yes. Yep. But it's fun. I mean, I started this about 5 years ago. We just went over 4,700 members in the Facebook group. We're a little over 1,100 subscribers on YouTube. So it's moving in the right direction. I'm going up and to the right. I can't complain.
Hard work does pay off. Don't let them tell you anything otherwise, man.
That's right. The hustle.
Hard work's the only thing that pays off.
Yeah.
Anyone who tries to say something else is selling snake oil.
Well, that and inheritance.
Out there doing that, fortunately.
Oh, and here's Pete. So let's go ahead and sign Pete to that guest number 3. Hey, Pete, how you doing?
Hey, Erik. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we are here tonight, and I don't know, feels like I'm getting choppy now.
Yeah, it's a little bit choppy, but I hear you fine. I think maybe the video is a little bit choppy, but that's fine. Well, we can keep talking.
Hopefully that'll smooth out. We'll blame Pete.
Sure.
Oh, and now, well. So, tonight we are here to talk about Community Minds. So, George, why don't we start off with just talking about what Community Minds is and why you started it?
Sure, absolutely. So, my good friend Kenny Patterson, hopefully everybody knows and loves the man. I do. During the pandemic, me and him honestly started off joking about the concept of this like RV tour that we were going to take around the country because, nothing like being outside when there's a pandemic and no problems, right? So as you know, that all morphed into 3 years of the Channel Strong Tour. And we love driving literally tens of thousands of miles across America. And man, it is a whole different place when you're not flying over it. I promise you should try it. And there's a lot of cool MSP offices out there and a lot of parking lot space that we found work perfectly for tailgating. So, of course, that served its time. And we said, hey, if we were to park the bus and flip into, a more formal event format, what would it look like? And so we went to all the people that kind of came out and joined us on Channel Strong Tour. That was a couple of thousand people, by the way. All MSPs, all IT service providers. We just said, we get it. There's so many events, especially, like new events that have popped up out of nowhere. old events that have come back, the staple events that have been pretty good for a long while, but it's like kind of event fatigue a little bit. And we said, hey, we just don't want to do a copycat, just another event for event's sake. If that's the case, tons of places to go, tons of events to see. And so we said, if you had a perfect event, or if you could design a perfect event, what would it look like? And, we spent a lot of time listening to people, right? And just seeing what is good, what is bad. And like we heard the message loud and clear, right? People want to go to events to learn. And like, if they want to buy something, they're going to buy something. Okay. I'm not saying get pitched at per se, but learn. And number one, who do they best learn from? Well, at every bar, hallway, or curb at an event that you've been to at some point in the past, you learn best from the people who are doing what you do, right? The people in the trench. So we wanted to hear directly from, the horse's mouth, so to say, right? We wanted to hear from MSP, business owners and people that have, been through things and like understand the pain, because you can't make that up, right? Like you either did it and you have the real world experience, or you didn't. And so the other thing we wanted to do was, sometimes getting the right expert in the room costs a lot of money, right? Like, but what we wanted to do is bring smart people who otherwise would maybe be hard to get to, or maybe you just didn't know whether you were ready to like make an investment there, and come and do a workshop on a topic with you, right? What does that mean? Like, I've been to hundreds of breakout sessions. It's death by PowerPoint, guys. Like, if I'm really intrigued, I'm engaged, but like, I usually walk away 6 months later. I go through, I find that I took notes on something and I never did a damn thing. So we wanted to make this interactive, right? We wanted you to be able to actually like engage the people in the room, bring your situation to the table, and like figure out what path there is for you. And I'm not saying you're going to get all of that done in a 2-hour window, but you sure as hell can start something. And that'll get you moving. And I don't know about you, but once something's going, it's a lot easier to continue down the path than never starting at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we said, if we could take these two concepts, real world MSP experience in the form of panels, right? And then real world workshops by industry minds, right? Smart people from all corners of the sandbox that aren't trying to sell you on their services. They're actually giving their services away, right? Like, let me give you a quick example, right? We all know and love Brad Gross. He's been around the industry forever. He's like, the go-to legal resource in the sandbox.
Yep.
Yeah, we're paying Brad to come out and give us 2 separate workshops. We're like, you're going to be able to get into the weeds with Brad. Like, I know what he charges per hour. I promise you. It's not cheap, but he knows his stuff. And like, the guy's busy, but we're going to get him to be able to talk about all things legal, right? You want to bring your MSA with you. You want to talk about scenarios. You want to talk about hypotheticals. This is your forum to do it without, feeling like you're, taking away from like a breakout session. But then we also, like I said, let me give you another example on the other side. So we have 3 panels that are going on with actual MSP business owners, right? M&A. We want to hear from the people that just went through it. What does it feel like? What happened? What did you wish you knew? Like, what could you have prepared for better, right? At some point, this does come in the journey, right? Why don't you hear it so you understand what's going on? In my opinion, Erik, I don't know what you've been hearing out there. I think there's going to be, the next 24 months going to have a lot of M&A activity. I think a lot of people are looking to sell.
Yep. Well,
and then go ahead.
It's kind of been that way for a little bit, right? We've started to see people who are ready to get out, right? Because the people who are a little bit older than me, right, who started back in the, let's call it mid to late 80s, they're starting to age out. They want to retire. And so I think we're seeing that. We're seeing values be at a point where it makes it worthwhile for people to do this. And I think we're seeing money from places we haven't seen money before coming into the space.
And then we have 3 panels with 3 MSP business owners per panel, right? Because we wanted to give you like a little bit of a sampling, right? So we got the M&A. We just talked about it. And then an interesting wrinkle. Instead of just a cybersecurity panel, because, by the way, we have Matt Lee at this event, and you can cyber geek out all you want. His session is really cool. Talk to you about in a second. How about the human side of cybersecurity? Right? Like, I want to investigate. I want to not talk about tools. I don't necessarily talk about frameworks per se. I want to talk about the human side of cybersecurity, the part that like is in between the keyboard and the chair. Okay. And also not just from the end customer side, but from what's happening at the engineer level, what's happening at the management level. Like, think about the stress sometimes that comes along with this word. Okay, so the human side of cybersecurity. And then we're going to have just a straight up open forum town hall, ask any question you want, because there's just, let's hear it from the people that have done it, right? So we're bringing 3 sets of business owners on those 3 topics, okay? And then if you want to go into a workshop with Matt Lee, by the way, the session of his workshop is the worst day in the life of an MSP. It's very cybersecurity focused, but it's super interactive. It's almost like a real world game, right? Where you team up with other people in the room and then you find out how you make out at the end of your very bad day. Think like, all of your clients got a hit at once. What do you do?
Yeah.
How do you figure out where do you go, right? And by the way, not totally a fictitious story, right? We know what happened in the summer of 21. A lot of people are in a bad spot, and like, imagine all of your customers going down same day. How long does it take you to bring all those people back, right? Yeah. So I'm super excited for this. Yes, we have really generous sponsors that have helped fund this thing and put it together. We're not looking to do, like, I don't even know if I can't call this a conference. I call this a learning event. Our sponsors are helping us put this together. There's no trade show floor at this event. Like, the people who are involved in this are going to be interactive in the crowd. And like, I like that because that's how I get to know people anyway, right? Like, let's have a human being conversation. I'm not trying to give you a pamphlet. And then I think MSPs will find something at this event. And if you think you got it all covered, all good. I mean, I don't want to take you away from your office, but or home office for that matter. But like, I'm really excited to just get genuine content from real people, right? Nobody's coming into this creating a story for you. They're telling you real world.
Right. And by the way, I can relate to that Matt Lee scenario. My worst day, I was actually speaking at Autotask Live. This was, I don't know, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
No, it couldn't have been that late because I sold in 2013. So it had to be 2011, 2012.
Okay. Early days.
There. And I literally get the phone call that one of my customers has been ransomed. And this was before ransomware was a thing, right? It had just become a thing. Like, they were having to manually ransom. But anyway, so those are valuable types of sessions. And speaking of the sessions that you have, we have several of the all-stars lined up tonight. So I'm going to bring them on in just a second, but I do want to do a shout out to the people who have joined us in the comments. And it does look like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook are all working now. However, Facebook is not telling me who's doing the comment. However, I'm pretty sure we all know who this one is.
Oh, yeah. Keith Nelson, my friend. Number one, yes, there will be cigars if you're there. I'll promise you that. But if somebody else is there, I can't promise them cigars. So if you show up, cigars will appear. And you're not going to be the one bringing them, although I know you always travel with them anyway. But yeah, Dallas Cowboys training camp, that's where you live, man, right? Part of it's in Cali, part of it's in Dallas. We're doing this in Denver. So, like, good news. I don't have to cause a kerfuffle with my Eagles gear coming through town. Plus, the Broncos, they got enough problems over there. We can give them a reprieve. But as always, Keith Nelson, you have an open and standing invite. If you would like to join me for Eagles Cowboys in Philadelphia, there's always a ticket for you, sir.
Yep. And we've got Brian in the house. We've got Degley in the house. We've got Timm, who did the live stream last week. We've got Henry Timm in the house. We've got Tony, who's been on the live stream before. And we have Darren here, along with several others. Because we've had quite a few people on already tonight, in spite of our technical issues, which, guys, we work in this industry. It just happens. At some point, I'll figure out how to do some type of redundancy so that, we can overcome those things. And Daniel, I didn't mention you because you're in the green room. You're ready to come on. So this is my 2-minute warning. It's not going to be 2 minutes though. It's more like 30 seconds. So all of you who are in the green room, I'm going to be putting you up in just a second. And by the way, if you're on Facebook and you want to switch over to YouTube like Keith did, then I know who's actually leaving the comments. Because compliments are a good thing, Keith points out, hey, Tony is here. That's the smartest guy in the channel. And by the way, if you didn't see that live stream, I did have Tony on probably about a month ago now. So definitely something worth going to watch. And lots of love going on here in the channel in the comments. So, but anyway, that's been at least 30 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to, and because we have more guests than we planned on, I'm going to go ahead and my 8 guest view, even though we only have, 5 of us here, but I have a 4 and an 8. So this is what we got. I mean, I can probably get rid of these. There we go. That way they're not cluttering up. And if we get somebody else to join us, that's fine. And wow, I am way zoomed in. So let's save you guys from that ugly picture. Looking right up my nose hairs. So thanks everybody for joining us. George, I'm going to kind of let you introduce people and kind of steer this in the direction, because I want you to be able to drive what people are going to get out of what Community Minds is and what to expect from these guests.
100%. So each of the guests on the screen here are tied into either a panel or a workshop. So I'm gonna start with Ian, who's the block right to my right, or at least on my screen he is. I don't know if there's like Zoom where everybody's on a different block, but I'm gonna start with Ian from Richardson and Richardson. If you don't know Ian, I'll let him intro himself, and then he can talk about what he's going to do in his workshop.
Thanks, George, man. Appreciate you having us all on, Erik, and thanks for the space to talk about the event, and thanks to George and everyone for putting it on. I'm Ian Richardson. I'm one half R&R, or Richardson and Richardson Consulting. I ran an MSP for 16 years and sold at the end of 21, and dove into the consulting thing. So I work with MSP owners who are looking for a way to figure out how to exit this thing and make some money while they do it. That's really that's the key of what I do. Is I help those other leaders get from where they're at to the closing table.
Awesome. And what's your workshop going to be on, Ian?
Yeah. So this is one that I'm banging the drum on a lot. I do a lot of conversations with folks throughout the day, catching up with people, obviously through prospecting activities and just having those hallway topics. And one of the questions that I've been bringing up over the past 2 years is, hey, how many times do you get interrupted throughout your day? And I writing down numbers. How many managers do you have? 5 times, right? Like 5 times, 3 times, 5 times. How long does that usually take? 5-10 minutes for the conversation, and then 5-10 minutes for me to get back into work. And that happen to all your leaders? Yeah. And when you do that math, you lose 5 to 17 days of productivity per year, per leader in your company, from people doing mother may I questions, which are not malicious in intent, but they're cancer that's killing productivity of business. So I'm just walking through how to eliminate it, how to eliminate disruption, how to eliminate distraction, how to eliminate those interruptions through a strategic tool set using the plan your business already has. And we're going to walk through that and go through it step by step and put together a 5-step funnel, and people will be able to walk out of there with a sheet of paper that they can straight up photocopy and stick on desks or throw it on people's wallpapers or whatever and eliminate the problem.
And I think that's important. Giving somebody something tangible from events like this is a lot of times something that we miss. And George, you said it earlier when we were just chatting about how, this is completely designed around the educational. And I know I've had lots of conversations with Ken about this as well. That's what these people need. And it's really refreshing to see that type of content being produced and being provided, and not just in a preach to form. From what Ian's doing a workshop. This is not Ian just preaching. This is Ian walking you through a process of how to figure this out, documenting it so that when you go back, like you said, Ian, they have that sheet of paper to, tape up at desks.
Yep. It's when George and I were talking on this. So like, George, I remember when you came and approached me on this, I was like, "Oh, is this going to be like another thing where we're going to talk?" Like, no, we're going to put them in a room. We're going to do stuff. And like, that was like a 30 or 40-minute conversation where like we were just waxing poetic around like, oh my God, how many times have we gone there? And you get this great thing. And then 3 days later and 3 bar nights later and everything, like that's just a sheet of paper shoved in your bag, and you find it 6 months later and you're like, what was this even about? And I don't have time for it. And like that investment of time and treasure in the conference was a waste.
I feel like that happens the majority of the time. I'm not trying to knock anybody's event. There's so many of them out there. We all have been to a lot of them, but man, if you went there to get something out of it, you came back, you never did or implemented or followed or, walked a little bit further down the path, then you went to have a lot of great beers with a lot of good people, but you can do that in a lot of places in America, I think.
Well, I think we've all been there. All of us who have owned MSPs, events open up a whole new realm for us because we're small businesses. Often we're siloed unto ourselves, and going to an event just opens up your eyes. Even if they don't have the educational aspect, just the peer-to-peer networking and knowing that other people are running into the same struggles or other people have solved the problems that you have. That's the reason you go to events, and adding the educational piece just makes it more valuable.
Yeah. How about not learning the hard way? Learning the smart way. People have already figured out the things that you haven't. Why don't you learn the path so that you don't have to literally crawl every time to figure out what your answer is? I mean, I wish I learned that earlier on in my career. I did it the hard way almost the whole way through, and I just wish I ran into certain people earlier and I would have been able to course correct faster and do things differently. But that's just the fickle way time works. I'm going to skip down to Dan Johnson. Dan, has been in the industry for a long time, but I'm not aging him out. He just recently sold his MSP, though, and Dan is on a panel about M&A. And we hear about this all the time. Everybody thinks that it's not going to happen and they're going to run their business forever. But I don't think that's true. I think if you do this right, you built your technology company, you exit it, and then you'll have time, hopefully, to do something else, right? I think that's whatever that is, right, is up to your dreaming. But, I'd love to hear from Dan on, a little bit about, what he's going to be able to explain on his more recent experience, right? This is really fresh, right? Last 90 days, I think.
Pretty much.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been an interesting journey. As M&A is always be a big topic. It's very hot in our market, but it's also kind of misunderstood. And we've allowed, PE and a couple other things to creep into that and kind of distort, some goals that I think every business owner needs to start to think about. Like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to run this business forever? Am I going to, what does my risk profile really look like? Am I trying to retire? Am I trying to hand this off to a family member, a son or a daughter? Am I trying to position it for sale? Do I have a really good partner in the industry where I want to put 2 and 2 together to make 7? What are your goals? But also kind of, even if you haven't completely planned it all out, knowing when opportunity knocks. And that was kind of our situation. We found ourselves in a very interesting situation where we realized, oh, we're in alignment with this other group. And we were struggling with a couple of things, but we also saw some great opportunities to work together. And I think that that's just an interesting discussion to have, which is, it's not always about selling out and cashing out and whatnot. It's about what can you build and how do you service your clients better and how can you service your employee base better, and take care of your family at the same time. So there's a lot of aspects to it. I'm pretty excited to have everybody coming here to Denver. My home turf, like the hotel's just a stone's throw, maybe a 9-iron from my house. So that's kind of dangerous, but it's going to be a great discussion. We've got a lot of smart people showing up, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And listen, we're going to have experts, right? But but to Erik's point, right? Like, I just feel like I absorb information better from somebody that I feel like I'm in the same plane of existence with, right? Same level. Like, I don't feel like I'm talking up or talking down to someone. Like, it's just, hey, I feel like I'm talking to somebody that I would have worked side by side with, given another time, place, right, situation. And I think I would download more information from that person than I would maybe going into another model. And that's why, again, in kind of putting this together with Ken and figuring out the best way to make sure people, regardless of where you are in your maturity level, right, or how long you've been around or how many employees you have, I think there's a lot to gain. And to be honest with you, we're helping other people share their experiences, and I think that's the best way to learn.
Yeah,
I'll just mirror that really quick. Sorry, Erik.
okay.
I've been to a lot of events. I've been in the channel for 25 years. I've been in the MSP world since its inception. And there is no other industry that has a community like the MSP industry has. And George and crew have built an amazing machine here to kind of bring the smart people in the industry together. Every time I would have not been able to do what I've done over the last year or so, or even the last 10 years, without the help of my peers, showing me the way, explaining, try not to do it the hard way, learn from the previous mistakes, learn from people that have done it really, really successfully. I mean, it's just been an invaluable experience. If you go to one, I saw a couple of comments. I'm not sure if the show's for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to get anything out of it. If you don't come back with 5 great ideas and you're just not annoying your staff with it, then you weren't there. You were just at the bar. And even at the bar, that's where some of the greatest conversations take place. Hey, in the hallway, meeting people and sharing some experiences and really figuring out how to tackle that next thing in your career. It's an amazing thing. I think community is a big deal.
And I do agree with you, Henry. I think Dan's going to be doing a lot more drumming in his future. That's for sure. Last but not least, bringing in Pete Busam from Equilibrium Consulting. How you doing tonight, Pete?
I'm doing all right, George. Thanks for having us in.
HD audio over there. It's fantastic. If anybody doesn't know who you are, how about a quick intro, and then let's hear about what your workshop's going to be on.
Well, I'm like a lot of you that was on here, but come October is my 35th anniversary in the channel. So I sold my first MSP IT company for about $65 million. We sold when we were 65 million as part of a bigger conglomerate, but it was a 6-year run from a $3,000 purchase order to 65 million. So it was a very, very fast growth, fast paced. So I share a lot of the things that Dan did. And early on in my career, I only wish that I had peer groups and I had people that I could do. I had great mentors, but nothing that this community has to offer today. And boy, did I fall on my face, and boy, did I make some big mistakes. And I learned. And by the time I got to my third MSP, before I sold it and got out of the business, of that side of the business, um, I had acquired and been acquired. So I've been on both sides of the fence, and it can be fun in several ways, but it can really stink too if you're not properly prepared and have those expectations. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of that from you, Dan. But some of the stuff that Ian said, plan, right? Planning your day, planning it, going. And one of the biggest things that we do is marketing, right? But we always hear from the MSP owners is, I need marketing. I don't know how to do it. And they go to a marketing agency, and the marketing agency just ties them up, spends a lot of money, and all they got was email. They didn't get anything, right? So what we're going to do in the workshop is we're actually going to give everybody a spreadsheet that they can open up on their notebook. And we're going to teach them what an omni-channel plan looks like. And they're going to actually build and walk out with their first quarter theme and plan, so they can go back and execute, write the content that's got to go deeper and greater into it, but they'll have it all mapped out. So really, to say, how do I get started? Here's how you get started. Here's the plan. You'll walk out with the tool set. You'll walk out with an open door that you can always call me, because I there's the go-giver attitude in this community that we all have. And, we'll see how each one of them goes back and takes it and applies it. But, when they walk out of it, they shouldn't just believe that only one thing, like cold calling, is going to get me there, or email is going to get me there, or they're going to know all the pieces that they have to do. And oh, by the way, everything that this event is about is relationship. And relationship is a big thing about what the omni-channel approach is, right? Everybody gets their best leads through referrals. So how do you build that community out, and how do you do that? So that's kind of where we're going with it.
Awesome. And, just for the people that we weren't able to have on tonight, just to give you an idea, workshops are going to be done by Brad Gross, and we talked about Mr. Legal Extraordinaire there, Matt Lee, which we mentioned earlier, of course, Ian and Pete. We're also going to have Juan Fernandez. I don't know if everybody's familiar with Juan, but he's been in the industry for a long time. He's worked with a lot of different outfits, including Hackware, which is, I think, the most recent one that he's been out there with. His workshop is on what your customers aren't telling you. An engaging workshop that helps you understand what your customers need and what they wish you knew they needed. And he says exercise that help you understand what to do and what you need to help you get to the yes. And then there's also Kyle Christensen from K7. His workshop is on the Fort Blueprint, building an unshakable MSP. And so his little description goes, ever felt like you're locked in a cycle, wrestling with scaling your MSP and failing to break free? Have you found yourself mired in the mundane, always dealing with non-tech tasks instead of pioneering innovative solutions? This is not your destiny. It is simply a sign your technical prowess is bumping up against the invisible barriers in your organization. And then lastly, we are going to have Erik Boles. Erik Boles is actually the founder of Pax8 Studios and has been really heavy into the creator community. So Erik's workshop is going to be Evolve or Evaporate, how content-driven experiences, relationships, and trust will reshape the MSP of the future. And if you follow Erik, and I highly suggest you would, he loves the fact that you should just get behind your camera and just start. You don't need to have all the fancy stuff here like Erik, although you may get there one day. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is just press the button on your iPhone or your Android. They have really nice cameras on them now, I promise you. And just get started, right? Creating content organically, and you'd be surprised how that will just start a lot of things for you that, quite frankly, are being locked down because people are scared of that camera. So, of course, those are the workshops. And then, again, the panelists, Dan will be joined by Ryan Lakin and Zach Paulson, both who had I think very successful exits as well. So I think between the three of them, you'll have a really, really cool M&A panel and a very blunt one, to be honest. I love those. On the human side of cybersecurity, you're going to have Roddy, everybody's favorite guy from Louisiana, or one of them, Shell Phillips, and Seth Kilander. So they're going to be on the human side of cybersecurity. And then lastly, on our open forum town hall, you're going to have JP Keesy, our one of our very favorite people from Texas. Got Mr. Henry Timm, we all know and love, and Mr. Danny Perry from IT Cube down in Houston. So they'll be on the open forum town hall. So like, guys, here's the best part of all of this, right? This event's 100% free to attend. There's no early bird special, $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, $9.99. Like, we're literally just asking you to take 2 days out of your life, journey yourself to beautiful Denver. Hopefully it won't be as hot as some of the Texas and Florida events I've been to in the last couple of weeks. And literally just walk in the door. By the way, all the food and beverage is covered. There is breakfast, there is lunch, there's dinner. It's all covered for you. It is, believe it or not, a free event for you as an MSP. The only thing that's stopping you is you.
And
so,
George,
I hope that paints the picture, guys. If this is the event you are hoping for, I hope we get close to it. But this is as educational and learning as I think we can get you.
Ian?
Yeah, I would. The one thing I would say is if you're not going to take 2 days to invest in yourself, who will? Right? Like it's not a sales pitch event. There's no trade show floor. Everything's covered. You just got to buy a flight and book a hotel. That's a pretty low risk engagement for potential of very high reward.
I mean, it's just like putting your oxygen mask on first, right? It's the same idea. And there's a theme that I noticed for the workshops. Number one, the theme is you're going to walk away with something. With Ian, it's that sheet of paper. With Pete, it's that marketing tool, right? It's that spreadsheet for doing the multi-channel or the omni-channel marketing plan. The most important thing you can do with any of this stuff is just get started. These guys are going to be handing you what you need to get started. You don't have to buy anything. They're going to show you how to use it in the workshop. No excuses, right? And then the other thing, especially like with M&A, right? M&A, it's getting better, but up to this point has kind of been mysterious. And the only people who will talk about it are the people who haven't actually done it, right? And so bringing MSPs in who have actually done it, I think is critical. I mean, I wish I would have had somebody. I mean, granted, part of that is my fault too. I didn't reach out to anybody when I went to sell my MSP. I just did it. And I will be straight up front. I did it poorly, right? But I had different motivations. So I think, George, I think you guys are doing exactly the right thing. I think this is the right kind of content to bring. I think making it available to anybody who can show up. Again, I mean, it's just the right way. And it's another example of how we treat community in this channel, right?
Definitely a pay it forward. We want you to definitely walk away with more than one thing. I think Dan said 5 things. I hope that's the minimum. I hope there's more than that. But I think that the biggest thing to take away from this is the people who are involved in the content of the event. They're not here to hook you with some, sign up for my plan. It's X dollar, like they're going to just be honest, straightforward people who just want to share their experiences. And like, that's the people you do want to talk to, right? Those are the people that do make this community so great. And like, no ulterior motives. We're not going to, come after you and hope that you buy 80,000 phone calls worth of SaaS products. Again, there will be vendors there. They're going to be involved in the event. If you want to talk to them, they'll absolutely talk to you. but there's literally no trade show floor. I promise you there is enough in it for them to make this worth their while too. I'm all about balance. I've said this everywhere I can. I do believe there's a way that everybody on both sides of the aisle can benefit. But we really want to prove this model forward, right? And we want to pay it back to the community. And that's why this thing is free. So for all the people that are like, hey, I never want to take a cold call, I get it. You don't want to respond to all those LinkedIn messages, I get it. But the vendors that are involved in this event are literally paying for it, for you to make, basically come for free. I don't know how else to say that. I don't think they would invest their money in you and in this event if they didn't care. So I think if we can prove this new style, or maybe not so new, but if we can mature it out a little bit, we could maybe help start the trend of a new flavor of events that are now popping onto the channel circuit that are not as spammy as you guys like to say it all the time. So, not trying to knock anybody, just trying to tell you if we can, make this worth your while and have you walk out of your office for a couple of days, come back and say, you know what, that was really different. This is how we change it. We've got to start with the first one. This is that first one.
Yep. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if a vendor is willing to sponsor this event without a speaking spot and without a trade show floor, they get it.
100%. And don't you want more people to get it? I do. And by the way, I've been on both sides of this aisle too, right? I want you to feel the things that, by the way, everybody remembers really great experiences, right? That's why we always do all these crazy parties and bands and you name it, right? We've done some cool stuff in the channel over our time. I don't think you're going to get anything better than real world knowledge from the people in front of you. So I think the caliber of people that were coming to this event, including the people you see on the screen, some of the best in the channel. Take advantage of it. Please. Please do.
All right. Well, that we're getting pretty close to the top of the hour. And as everybody who is a regular here on the show knows, I try and end this before 8 o'clock to make sure that we don't interfere with Uncle Marv's live stream. Because if you're not watching Marvin B's IT Business Podcast live stream, you should be. So, make sure that you're watching that one as well. I'm going to let George, why don't you give me one more, synopsis of, again, what Community Minds is for, but then also I want you to pitch MSP Initiative a little bit too, because we didn't talk about the fact that you have a larger umbrella that you're kind of doing this under. And I want to make sure that people are aware of that.
Well, let me just, on a quick way out the door. So MSPinitiative.com, that's like the parent, kind of umbrella that tries to get all these things in for you. MSPCommunityMinds.com will take you to the landing page for this event that we're talking about. You can get all the rest of the information. I saw in there the hotel is discounted. Yes. I'm just trying to make this as inexpensive as possible, as close to free as we can. I know I can't cover everybody's airfare, but there is a very inexpensive train that goes from the airport to the other side of town. I think it's like $6 if you didn't know. But MSP Initiative, we started during the pandemic because, number one, there was nobody else doing anything else. Number two, we wanted to go out on the road. We wanted a vendor neutral brand, right? That, was more about community than it was about any one thing in the community. So that's why we created, yes, Keith, I can cover your car service if that's what it's going to get you to the plane, man. Give me a call. So we started MSP Initiative in March of 2020. We wanted to do like an independent voice in the channel, right? So that wasn't tied to any one media company or big, kind of company in the space. So all of the parties that we were doing before and after MSP Initiative was created are now underneath of MSP Initiative. You've seen us do all these block party events. Now international, been really fun. We love doing those. We have 3 of those coming up as well for the rest of the year. So if you're going to be at the Big with Taylor Business Group, if you're headed to Miami for DattoCon, if you're going to Orlando in November, we all know what for. We got 3 block parties left for the rest of the year. And then, once we, hung up or parked the bus after Channel Strong, we really committed to trying something different. And this is where Community Minds came from. I really hope it's successful. I want to prove, this, like a lot of other people on the channel, that we can change what, makes the channel event successful. And yeah, it's, I know there's a lot of communities out there, a lot of successful ones like yours here, Erik. But at the end of the day, MSP Initiative is like really just a community approach to all the things that we're doing.
Awesome. Well, and Ian, Pete, Dan, I appreciate you guys being on here tonight as well. I'm going to push you guys off to the green room for just a minute while I close this out, and then I'll come back and wrap things up with you guys.
See you soon.
Thanks, Erik.
Take care.
All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for this kind of mixed up, because of the technical issues there at the beginning, episode of All Things MSP Live. Thank you to George and all of the great guests who are here to talk about Community Minds. If you can go, I highly recommend that you do. This is the kind of event that will move your business to the next level. And I'm not saying that because George is a friend of mine. I'm saying it because this is the type of content that you need to see, hear, feel, touch, have a workshop about, all of those different things. So try, if you can go. I know there's a lot of things happening in August. We got ChannelCon next week. We've got other events towards the end of the month. But this, I think, is going to be a really well-reviewed and well-talked about event for the rest of the year, and hopefully for years to come. All right. That's it for me tonight. I will be at ChannelCon next week, so come find me, come see me, let's chat. Always looking for live stream guests as well as podcast guests. So want to make sure we hook up in Vegas and have conversations about all things MSP. Talk to you later.